Hey guys, welcome to SouthernTrace Camping, where today I'm going to do an upgrade to our bathroom. I'm going to take our bathroom that currently looks like this and change it over to this. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove the sink, then we're going to replace the faucet and the lines, and then I'm going to do a backsplash on it. So I will take you along for the highlights of this so that you can kind of get an idea on what you need to do this for yourself. Everything that I have purchased, there'll be links to on Amazon in the description, and I have roughly 200 bucks tied up in this upgrade. So let's hope everything goes smooth. Let's get started. Okay, so one of the first things you're going to want to do is put a towel under here and get yourself a little bowl, because we're going to disconnect the P-trap, and when that happens there's going to be water in there, and you want to try to keep it as contained as possible without making a huge mess. From there, we're going to reach up under there and undo some plastic nuts that hold the water line on. And then it looks like there's 4 or 5 tabs underneath the sink that have a screw in them. We'll have to back those out so that we can lift the sink up. Okay, so I'm going to do that real quick and then I'll get back to you. Okay, so I disconnected all the lines, and water is going to pour out from just your water lines. So if you want to blow your lines out first, you can. If not, it's very little water, but that's what the towel will help catch. Now the sink did have some little tabs. I put this one back on there so you could see. I believe there's a total of 7 of them. And you just loosen them up, and I dropped them all the way out. Actually, I only had to drop out 4 of them, or 5, and then you were able to shift the sink enough to make this pop right out. Literally, this took 5 minutes or less. Alright, so we're going to go on to the next step of getting the new sink ready to put in. Okay, so I went ahead and set the new sink in there just to verify that it was going to fit the way that I wanted, and I did not have to do any trimming of this circle. There was plenty of space there. It looks like everything is going to fit perfectly. Now, the issue will be the other sink had tabs to help secure it down. But when you finally get this done and it's hooked into the P-trap, I'm going to run a small bead of silicone under this lip when I finally tighten everything down, and that will help secure it as well. So it being tied into the plumbing and then your silicone, you really shouldn't have any problem with this thing moving. But next, let me show you exactly how we're going to install the drain. Okay, so this is the new drain. This sink has an overflow on it, so it cannot overflow. It will come back down into the actual drain itself, which is what this is for. So this is our new drain. It matches everything. It's got a little pop-up deal on it. So we're going to stick this in to where it's coming out of this hole, and then I'll come right back. Okay, so this may throw you off if you've never done one of these before. This has a whole bunch of gap in between the actual drain and the drain that they're installing. You can see there's a big gap there. Don't worry, you just drop that plastic seal down around there, and then you're going to chase it with that nut all the way down and secure it, which is what I'm going to do now, and I'll show you how sturdy it becomes. Okay, so basically I put Teflon tape around the threads and chase this down. One little side note on this rubber seal, you want the flat side of the seal. It's got a taper to it. You want the taper going in and the flat side to be at the flat side of this nut, and you want the hex pointing down so that you can grab that with pliers and snug it up really, really tight, which is what I'm going to do now. And then we're going to move over to doing the faucet. Hey, one more quick side note. I just went ahead and took this outside and filled it up with water to where it was going all the way to the overflow, and just to make sure nothing was leaking before I went any further, to make sure all my seals were holding really good, and they are. Even if this seal right here were to start leaking, it's going to leak into that bigger chamber and still wind up in your drain. So that bottom seal is actually your most important. Anyway, I thought I'd point that out real quick to you. Now it is time to put the faucet on there. Okay, so this is our faucet, and this is the underneath side. You can see we've got several holes up in there. You can see the 2 big ones on the top of what I'm going to call that smiley face. The one on the left will be for your hot, because the hot symbol is on the left hand side. So you'll put your hot water on the left and your cold water on the right. Now you'll know which line is which because one is red and one is blue. So what we're going to do is thread those in there. It is a thread, so you just stick it in there and get it as snug as what you can possibly get it. Each one of the lines does have O-rings on it so that it is easy to seal off. So I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, during the process of doing this, I figured out the base will unscrew, giving you better access to screwing these in. You can't really tell here, but they are bottomed out all the way in, and that's just by doing it by hand. But you do have to bow up on them pretty good to get them to go all the way up that tight. I did lightly squeeze this top flange here with a set of pliers to make sure that I couldn't get them any tighter, and I could not. So anyway, that's how you do them. You just screw them in as tight as what you can. They're double O-ringed. I feel pretty confident that they are sealed. So now we'll go ahead and fasten this to the actual sink. Okay, so here's how all this will go together. You have this rod right here, which you're going to thread into that hole that is right there. You can see it down in there. This rod will thread up into there. On top of the threads, you want your steel washer followed by your rubber washer, and this is going to go in just like that. Okay, you want to make sure you have your O-ring, which is going to fit into that little groove right here where my finger's at. This will go down and go through your base plate, and under the base plate is kind of a felt slash seal base that goes in there. So I'm going to screw all this together, and then I'll show you how I mount it onto the sink. Okay, I went in and tightened everything up super snug, made sure it was all aligned. I snugged it up and then went ahead and made sure everything was aligned and tightened it a little bit and then backed it off and then tightened it a little bit to make sure it all stayed lined up the way that I wanted to. I got a little scratch going right there, but oh well. So now what we have to do is we have to get these lines, this little size, to go here. And how are we going to do that? Well, what I'm going to do is use this pipe cutter, and I'm going to cut these lines off. Right, I'm going to go back just a little bit away so I have some room. And the reason that I'm going to do that is because I bought these Sharkbite Vials like this. These are just push-on valves, but they also have cutoffs on them, so that if anything goes wrong, I can cut the water off at these valves. Or if the flow is too great for this style faucet, in case it's shooting out of there, I can cut down the amount of flow with these valves. So I've got two of them. These valves are, they're 1/2 inch to 3/8 OD. They're Sharkbite with an inline valve. I believe, man, I can't remember, but I think they were $5 or $7 a piece. Not very expensive. So I'm going to go in here and cut this line off and attach those and show you exactly what I'm doing. Just in case you've never seen how a pipe cutter works, you just put this on there and you start to spin it around. You snug it up, go around a time or two, and then you turn your knob to the right, put more pressure on it, and this is your little cutting wheel. And you just keep doing it and then tighten it a little bit more and keep spinning, tighten it a little bit more, keep spinning. On copper and other stuff, you have to be you got to go a little bit slower, but this is plastic. As you can see, there's water pouring out into my little bucket down there, and we are pretty much all the way through that. And that's just how that works. Gives you a nice clean edge to work with there. Just in case you've never seen one of those work, they're about 10 bucks at Lowe's if you want to purchase one. Or you can use PVC scissors or cutters. I'm not sure which one they call them, but they use, a lot of sprinkler companies use these big cutters also. So now I'm going to do this line here. Okay, so now it's time to hook the Sharkbite cutoff valve in line. And this is the 1/2 inch side, so you want the 1/2 inch to be the PEX side and the 3/8 side to be the threaded side, so it'll screw into those other lines. When we get it installed, we'll wrap that with some Teflon tape and screw in those metal braided lines. So these things work pretty simple. You just take, there's a little dowel in there. I'm not sure if you can see that real well, but you line that up to where it goes inside the PEX, and then you just push it on there real tight. As tight as what you can get it. And that dude, I'm pulling hard right now, and that sucker will not come off of there. And that's just about as easy as what it's going to get for you. We'll do this to this other, to the cold water side, same exact thing. We're going to line up the dowel so that it goes in there, and then we're just going to snap it on there. It's on there, and again, double check it. I cannot get that off of there. Alright, so that's how you put those on. So now we have two inline cutoff valves that we can get to should we need to, and I'll probably mount those right up here so I can reach in there and grab those. Okay, so I connected the lines to the Sharkbite fittings, and what I did was I turned these valves to the off position so I could get better access to those nuts, and I tightened them as tight as I could get finger, and then I took a pair of pliers and went ahead and tightened them really secure. One thing I want to point out is that with each set you're going to get an extra nut and little ferrule there that comes with those Sharkbite kits. That was on the threaded end. You will not need those because your current lines, the way they're set up, they've already got a seal and everything built into the head right there in that nut. So now I'll turn these valves right here back straight on both of them so that water can flow through them, and we will put the drains together down there, and I'll show you that. As of right now, it's taken me about a total of 15 to 20 minutes to do all of this. Not bad at all. Okay, so this is the main drain pipe going into the P-trap right there, and everything lined up for the most part. I was off by about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. So right down here, I pulled that grommet up and cut the wood, made a little half a rectangle, if you will, coming forward so that I could lean that forward just enough to connect all of this. And so far, everything seems to be working just fine. So if your plumbing doesn't line up, you can cut through this board here down where the main drainage goes to your tanks and make it all work. So one thing that I want to show you is this is wide open on the cold side. As you can see, that's coming out at a pretty good rate. So my hand right now is underneath on one of the little valves that I put on there. So I'm going to taper that back because I don't need a full flow. I need something kind of gentle about like that. So that's another thing with these valves that you can control, is how much flow is coming through there. Especially if you have kids, you want to be able to control how much water they're using. So I tapered that way back. So that's something you can use those valves for also. Okay, so this is the finished product on the sink. You can see I put a bead of silicone around there. When that white little ring dries, it will be clear. You won't be able to see it. My concern is right now the sink is still moving about a little bit. Hopefully the silicone will solve that. I put a thick bead and set the sink down on it and then cleaned up the outside. So hopefully when it dries, it will be more secure. If not, I will put something right after this showing how I went in and secured it even better from underneath. Now it is time to put in the backsplash all through there. So let's get started. Alright, so we're about to do the sticky backsplash on the bathroom. Now one thing that you need to know about this sticky backsplash is when you trim it, I want to start with a straight edge on one of the walls and one of the corners. When you go to trim it, do not trim this side with this extra backing. You want to trim this side. This is the only side you want to trim. The reason for that is when you bring in other sheets to match up, it can lay right over this stuff here. If you don't trim, if you wind up trimming this off, none of the stuff will ever match up. And I'll show you what I mean once I have it in there on the wall. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and trim to get a straight line across this to start my project. Okay, so the first piece is hung up there. One thing I want to point out, I'm hoping I can get my finger under this, is that it has this front little film on it. You will need to peel that off right away, and here's why. That needs to come off. Okay, so now this, the reason you need that off is because now the next piece is going to fit like a puzzle piece. It's going to place right up on this, and this will stay your backing so it looks like mortar in between everything, so you're going to keep going. Now comes the fun job of going around the electrical outlet without taking it off. My plan is to just keep it pushed to the side, peel back half the sticky tape, get it in place, take the X-Acto knife and just cut out a square and then roll around it, and hopefully it will work right. This stuff is somewhat forgiving. You can put it on and peel it back off a little bit. The more times you do that, the less stickiness you're going to have, and the more likely it is to fall off later on. The other test is going to be the hot summer sun. If it, we're in Texas, so if this falls off during the summer, I'll put a note somewhere on this video to let you know that the heat is not its friend. Anyway, let's keep on trucking all the way around. Just kind of wanted to show you what I'm doing for the electrical outlet. I'm keeping all this together. I'm going to go ahead and pull all this sticky back all the way off, and then just walk it as far as I can, and whatever doesn't go down, I'm just going to cut out around that with the X-Acto knife. And as you can see, I'm almost where I need to be, and I can kind of gauge where I need to cut with the X-Acto knife, and then the rest of that will be underneath this box, so you'll never see even if you mess up the cut. So let's do that. So as you can see, all I did was take an X-Acto knife, started right at the corner of where the electrical outlet is, sliced it, went straight that way, did the same at the bottom. Now I'll just come in from the top, kind of gauge it, and just slice down it. And this is still going to be big enough to cover that whole square. So it really wasn't too difficult, you just got to take your time. Okay, so on the backsplash, this is what it's going to wind up covering. However, I still need some on this side. So this was the flap that I cut out. All I'm going to do is line it up on this side and walk it back towards the electrical plug this way, and then slice out the section that I need so everything will match on this section over here for my last little piece to the crown molding. Alright, so okay, so I've worked my way around the electrical box, not a big problem. Now I'm going to go ahead and match this up, and my plan is to kind of do the same thing, just halfway peel it, and then I'm actually going to use the piece of crown molding as my edge for cutting down this stuff, and then I should have a straight edge, and then I can keep it going on this side of the crown molding, coming all the way across to this. This is the plan. Let's hope that it works. So here we go with this. Alright guys, here's the finished product. In all, it took a little over 2 hours, and most of that time was spent on the actual backsplash itself. I had a hard time getting it straight and level. There are a few blemishes in it where it didn't exactly match up, and a couple little places where it's off. You probably can't see it from here, but every time I'm brushing my teeth, I'm going to be staring right at those mess ups. Anyway, I hope this gives you a good idea on something you may want to try on your trailer. The links for everything I used are down below for Amazon. And guys, this is just an easy thing to do that can really spice up or make your trailer bathroom look a whole lot better. Anyway, I hope this helps. Get out there with your families, have fun, be safe, and God bless. One quick final note that may help you with this project: do the backsplash first, because I had set that sink up and I put that silicone around it. Well, doing the backsplash, I kept bumping the sink, causing the silicone not to set up right. So I had to strip all that off there and re-silicone it, and now it's all secured and holding fine. A second note, on the drain, the pop-up drain that I put in, that is a 2-piece drain. You know, I tightened that nut on there, and at the base of those threads, that smooth section that goes down into your P-trap, it unscrews also. Well, it wasn't screwed on real tight. They weren't secured together tight enough. So I kept getting this leak with just a few drops of water on the cabinet inside there, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Well, lo and behold, I was able to tighten that up just enough to make it stop leaking, but just to be safe, I went ahead and put a bead of silicone around that. So at the base of that drain, the base of the threads where the smooth section starts, it will separate right there. That's 2 separate pieces. So those are just 2 tips there that may save you a little bit of headache. Anyway, good luck on your project should you decide to do it.